The moment she saw him, Emily froze. Her coffee slipped from her hand, shattering against the tile floor. Because the man standing across the street was not supposed to exist in her world anymore. Not after 15 years. Not after the night he walked out of their lives without a word. But there he was, older, thinner, standing beside a parked car like he had nowhere else to go. And when he slowly looked up, their eyes met. And in that exact moment, Emily Carter realized something that made her chest tighten. Her father hadn't just disappeared. He had been hiding. 15 years earlier, Emily was just a child the night her father walked out of their home in Columbus, Ohio. No explanation, no goodbye, just an empty driveway and a silence that never quite left the house. Her mother never spoke about it. The police called it abandonment. Friends called it selfish. But over the years, Emily began to wonder something else entirely. What if her father didn't leave because he wanted to? What if something made him disappear? Because the man she just saw standing across the street didn't look like someone who had simply walked away. He looked like someone who had been running. And what Emily was about to discover would force her to question everything she thought she knew about her family. But to understand how a father could vanish for 15 years and then suddenly reappear in the most unexpected place, we have to go back to the night everything changed. To the moment the Carter family stopped being whole. Before we continue, I'm curious, where are you watching from tonight? Let me know in the comments, because this story might hit closer to home than you think. The night he disappeared, there was no warning, no argument, no slammed doors, no sign that anything was about to change. Just silence. The kind of silence that only makes sense after everything is already gone. Inside the Carter home, the lights were still on. Dinner had just ended. Plates sat half-stacked in the sink, still warm. The faint smell of roasted chicken lingered in the air, and somewhere in the background, the television played softly to no one in particular. It looked like an ordinary night. It felt like an ordinary night. And that was the problem. Because years later, when Emily Carter tried to remember the last time she saw her father, she wouldn't remember anything dramatic. No final words, no goodbye. Just a moment so normal, it didn't feel important at all. But that moment would be the last time her family was ever whole. At the table sat Mark Carter, 43 years old, a man everyone trusted, a man who never missed a responsibility, the kind of father who showed up early and stayed late. At least, that's what everyone believed. Across from him sat his wife, Laura Carter, 40, calm on the surface, but watching closely, because she had started to notice something small, something easy to ignore, until it wasn't. And at the far end of the table sat Emily Carter, just 10 years old, quiet, observant, the kind of child who didn't interrupt but never missed anything. She didn't understand what was happening yet, but she could feel it, that subtle shift in the air, that quiet tension no one was talking about. And then something happened, something so small no one realized it was the beginning of everything. "Dad?" Emily said softly. Mark looked up, almost as if he'd been pulled back from far away. "Yeah, sweetheart? Are you coming to my school thing tomorrow?" For a moment, just a moment, Mark hesitated. A flicker, barely noticeable, but it was there, and Emily saw it. "Of course I am," he said quickly, forcing a small smile. But the smile didn't reach his eyes, and that was the part Emily couldn't understand. Laura noticed it too. She wiped her hands slowly on a dish towel, her gaze lingering on him longer than usual. "Mark," she said carefully. "You've been working late again this week." Mark stood up, too quickly, too casually, like he was trying to outrun the question. "Just busy," he replied. But that wasn't the truth. And deep down, Laura knew it. The conversation ended there, but the tension didn't. It lingered in the air, quiet, unresolved, waiting. Later that night, the house fell into silence. Emily lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the soft glow from the hallway light stretching beneath her door. Something felt wrong. Not loud, not obvious, just off. Like the kind of feeling you get right before something changes forever. Downstairs, Mark stood near the window, looking out into the dark street. Laura leaned against the kitchen counter behind him, watching, waiting. "How long has this been going on?" she asked quietly. Mark didn't turn. "I don't know what you mean." Laura exhaled slowly. "Don't do that," she said. "Don't pretend everything's fine." Mark's shoulders stiffened. "It is fine." "No," Laura said, her voice firmer now. "It's not." Silence filled the room. Then, "And don't lie to me again." That made him turn. "Lie?" he repeated. Laura stepped forward. "I saw the messages, Mark." The room went still, completely still. "What messages?" he asked, but his voice betrayed him. Laura shook her head slowly. "Don't." Another silence, heavier now. And then something changed. Not anger, not guilt, something else. Fear, real fear. Laura noticed it immediately. Her voice softened. "What is it?" she asked. Mark glanced toward the door, then back at her. "I didn't want you involved in this." Laura frowned. "In what?" Mark hesitated. For a moment, it looked like he might finally tell her, like everything was about to make sense. But then he stopped himself, and that hesitation changed everything. Upstairs, Emily quietly opened her bedroom door. The voices had grown louder, sharper. She stepped into the hallway, careful not to make a sound. The wooden floor creaked beneath her foot. She froze, listened, then moved closer to the stairs. Downstairs. "What are you not telling me?" Laura demanded. Mark said nothing. "Mark!" Still nothing. "Tell me what's going on." Finally, "I can't." The words were quiet, but they landed heavy. Laura stared at him. "You can't or you won't." Mark's voice dropped. "I'm trying to protect you." Laura blinked. "Protect me from what?" Mark didn't answer, because the truth was something she wasn't ready to hear. And then, something happened. Something small, but important. Mark's phone buzzed, once, then again. He looked at it, and whatever he saw changed everything. The color drained from his face. Laura stepped closer. "What is it?" He didn't respond. He read the message again and again, then slowly lowered the phone. Upstairs, Emily watched from the shadows of the staircase. She didn't understand the words, but she understood the feeling. Something was wrong, something bigger than anything she had ever seen before. Mark grabbed his jacket. Laura stepped in front of him. "Where are you going?" No answer. "Mark!" Still nothing. "Mark, don't walk away from me." He stopped at the door, just for a second. And in that moment, everything could have been different. He could have stayed. He could have explained. He could have chosen them. But instead, he opened the door. Cold night air rushed in. "Tell Emily I'm sorry," he said quietly. Laura's voice broke. "For what?" Mark didn't answer. And then he stepped outside. Emily pressed herself against the wall as the door opened. She watched him, her father, walking out into the night. She wanted to call his name, wanted to stop him, but something inside her told her not to, because this wasn't normal. This wasn't just someone leaving. This was something else. She heard the car door slam, the engine start, the tires pulling away, and just like that, he was gone. Laura stood frozen in the doorway, not crying, not shouting, just staring at the empty street, waiting, as if somehow he might come back. But he didn't. The next morning, the house felt different, quieter, heavier. Emily sat at the kitchen table, her cereal untouched. "Is Dad coming back?" she asked softly. Laura didn't answer right away, because she didn't know how to, and sometimes silence says more than words ever could. Days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months. No calls, no letters, no explanation, just absence. The police called it abandonment. Neighbors whispered. Friends stopped asking. And slowly, life moved on, at least on the surface. But something about that night never made sense. Not the way he left, not the look on his face, and definitely not the message that made him walk out that door. Because years later, Emily would remember that moment, that exact moment, and realize something she hadn't understood as a child. Her father hadn't left because he wanted to. He left because something forced him to. And whatever that something was, it hadn't gone away. It had just been waiting, waiting quietly for 15 years, until the day she saw him again, standing across the street, like a man who was never meant to come back. Emily didn't go looking for answers that day. They found her. It started with something ordinary. A box, tucked away on the top shelf of a closet her mother rarely opened. 15 years had passed since the night Mark Carter disappeared. 15 years of quiet routines. 15 years of unanswered questions. 15 years of learning how to live around a silence that never really left. Emily was 25 now, older, wiser, but not free. Because some questions don't fade with time, they sharpen. That afternoon, the house felt different. Not dramatically, just enough for Emily to notice. Her mother, Laura, had left earlier than usual. No explanation, just a quick, distracted, "I'll be back later." And then she was gone. Emily stood alone in the hallway, staring at the closed door of her mother's bedroom. She hadn't gone in there in years, not because she wasn't allowed, but because something about it felt untouched, like time had frozen inside that room. And then something shifted, a thought, a feeling, a quiet pull she couldn't explain. She stepped inside. The room looked exactly the same. Neatly made bed, curtains drawn halfway, a faint scent of lavender lingering in the air. Nothing out of place. And yet, everything felt heavy. Emily moved slowly, carefully, as if the room might react to her presence. She wasn't searching for anything specific, not at first, just looking, until she opened the closet. Inside, everything was organized. Too organized. Clothes arranged by color, shoes lined up perfectly, boxes stacked neatly on the top shelf. And that's when she saw it. A single box. Plain, unlabeled, pushed slightly farther back than the others. Emily hesitated. Her fingers hovered just beneath it. Something about it felt wrong, or maybe too right, because deep down, she already knew. She pulled it down, set it gently on the bed, and just stared at it. "Don't," a voice in her head whispered, but another voice, quieter, stronger, pushed back. "Open it." So she did. Inside the box were papers, old ones, folded, some worn at the edges, and on top, a photograph. Emily picked it up. Her breath caught. It was her father, but not the way she remembered him, not smiling at the dinner table, not standing beside her at a school event. This was different. He was standing outside a building, looking over his shoulder, his expression tense, alert, like he knew someone was watching. Emily frowned. "That's not," she whispered, because that wasn't the man who left her that night. This was someone else, someone afraid. And then she saw it. In the corner of the photo, another figure, blurred, standing just far enough away to be unnoticed, unless you were looking for it. Emily leaned closer. Her heart began to race. "Who is that?" she whispered. But that wasn't the strangest part. Beneath the photo was a stock of documents. Emily flipped through them slowly, carefully. Bank statements, but not from any account she recognized. Different names, different numbers, different locations. Her hands trembled slightly. This doesn't make any sense. And then she found it. A folded piece of paper, yellowed with age, hidden between the others. Emily unfolded it, and everything changed. Because the handwriting on that page was her father's. Her chest tightened. She read the first line. "If you're reading this, something has already gone wrong." Emily's breath caught in her throat. Her eyes scanned the page faster now. "I didn't leave because I wanted to. I left because I had to." The room seemed to close in around her. They were watching us. Emily froze. "They?" she whispered. Her hands tightened around the paper. "If I stayed, you wouldn't have been safe." Her heart pounded harder. "What is this?" she said under her breath. But the letter didn't stop. "There are things you don't understand yet, things I couldn't explain without putting you in danger." Emily shook her head slightly. "No," because this wasn't possible. Everything she had believed, every explanation, every assumption was starting to fall apart. "If you ever find this, it means I couldn't come back." Emily's eyes blurred slightly. "And if that's the case, then you need to be careful." A long pause, then the final line. "Because they don't forget." Silence. The kind of silence that presses against your chest. Emily lowered the paper slowly. Her mind raced. They don't forget? Who were they? And why had her mother hidden this? Because that was the part that didn't make sense. Laura kept this all these years, which meant she knew at least part of it. And that realization hit harder than anything else, because suddenly this wasn't just about her father. It was about her mother too, and what she had chosen not to say. Emily stood up abruptly, the paper still in her hand, her breathing uneven now. No, this isn't right. She looked back at the box, at the documents, at the photograph. 15 years. 15 years of silence. And all this time, the truth had been sitting right here, hidden. That wasn't the strangest part. The strangest part was this. Her mother had never mentioned any of it, not once. Not even when Emily asked, not even when she cried, not even when she begged for answers. Which meant one thing. Laura Carter wasn't just protecting her, she was hiding something. And then something else clicked, something Emily hadn't considered before. That message, the one that made her father leave that night. What if it wasn't random? What if it was connected to this? Emily's eyes widened slightly. Then where has he been? She whispered. Because if the letter was true, her father hadn't abandoned them. He had been forced to disappear. And if that was the case, then the man she saw across the street wasn't a coincidence. He had come back. But why now? And more importantly, what had followed him back? Emily folded the letter carefully, her hands steadier now, not because she was calm, but because something inside her had shifted. Fear had turned into determination. She placed the letter back in the box, but she didn't close it, not yet, because there was still one question she needed answered, and she knew exactly who could give it to her: her mother. But as Emily turned toward the door, something stopped her. A thought, a realization. If her father had been hiding for 15 years, then maybe he wasn't the only one who had secrets. The front door opened. Emily didn't turn right away. She stood in the middle of the living room, the letter still folded tightly in her hand, her pulse loud enough to drown out everything else. Footsteps. Familiar. Measured. Her mother. "Emily?" Laura called from the entryway, her voice calm but not relaxed. There was a pause, a subtle shift in tone. "You're home early?" Emily slowly turned, and in that moment, something changed, because Laura saw it, the paper in her daughter's hand, the look in her eyes, the silence. And just like that, Laura Carter knew. "Where did you find that?" she asked. No hesitation, no confusion, just recognition. Emily's throat tightened. "So you knew?" Laura didn't respond. She stepped further into the room, closing the door behind her. Quietly. Too quietly. "Emily," she said, her voice controlled now. "Put that down." But Emily didn't move. "No," she said. A single word. Steady. But underneath it, years of confusion. Years of silence. Years of something that finally had a voice. "You told me he left," Emily continued. "You told me he walked out on us like we didn't matter." Her voice cracked slightly. "But that's not what this says." Laura's eyes flickered, just for a second, but it was enough. "Where did you find it?" she asked again, softer this time. "In your closet," Emily said, "and don't pretend you forgot about it." Silence filled the room, thick, heavy. Laura exhaled slowly, then walked past Emily into the kitchen. And that was when Emily realized something unsettling. Her mother wasn't surprised. She was preparing. "For what?" Emily demanded, following her. "For me to finally find out the truth?" Laura placed her bag down carefully. Too carefully, like every movement mattered. "You weren't supposed to find that," she said. Emily let out a short, disbelieving laugh. 15 years, Mom. 15 years, and I wasn't supposed to find out my father didn't just abandon us? Laura turned, and for the first time, there was emotion in her face. Not anger, not denial. Something deeper. Something complicated. "You don't understand," she said. "Then explain it," Emily shot back. "Because right now, it looks like you lied to me my entire life." Another silence. Longer this time. Laura looked at the letter, then back at Emily. "I didn't lie," she said quietly. "I protected you." "From what?" Emily demanded. And that was the question. The one that had been sitting in the room for 15 years, waiting. Laura didn't answer immediately. Instead, she walked to the sink, turned on the faucet, then turned it off again. A small action, but it said everything. She was buying time. And that was when Emily realized something else. This wasn't a conversation her mother wanted to have. This was one she had been avoiding. For 15 years, Emily said slowly, I thought he didn't love us enough to stay. Her voice softened. But now I'm starting to think. She swallowed. You knew he had no choice. Laura closed her eyes briefly, and that was all the confirmation Emily needed. You knew, Emily whispered. Laura opened her eyes again. Yes, she said. The word landed heavy. Emily stepped back slightly. So everything I believed, I let you believe it, Laura interrupted. Why? Emily demanded. And for the first time, Laura's composure cracked. Because it was safer, she said. The room went still. Safer? Emily repeated. Safer for who? For you, Laura said. Emily shook her head. No, don't do that. Don't make this about protecting me. You let me hate him. Laura's voice dropped. I needed you to. That stopped everything. Emily blinked. What? Laura stepped closer now, her expression serious, focused. If you believed he left, you wouldn't go looking for him. Emily's heart skipped. And if you didn't go looking for him, Laura paused, then no one would notice you. Silence. A different kind of silence now. One filled with something darker. What does that mean? Emily asked slowly. Laura didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked toward the window. And that was when Emily noticed it. A car, parked across the street. Her breath caught. Mom. Laura didn't move. How long has that car been there? Emily asked. Laura's voice was barely above a whisper. Since this morning. Emily's stomach dropped. I'm saying your father wasn't paranoid, Laura said. The words sent a chill through the room. They were watching him, Laura continued. And when he realized they were getting closer, she looked back at Emily. He left before they could reach us. Emily's mind raced. Who are they? Laura hesitated, and that hesitation said more than any answer could. I don't know exactly who, she admitted, but I know what they're capable of. Emily's hands tightened at her sides. And you just lived like this? No, Laura said. I survived like this. Another silence. But this one didn't last long, because suddenly there was a knock at the door. Both of them froze. One knock, sharp, deliberate. Then another. Emily's heart started pounding. Laura didn't move. Don't, she whispered. But Emily was already stepping forward. Emily! Too late. Emily reached the door. Her hand hovered over the handle. Everything inside her screamed to stop, but she didn't. She opened it, and the world shifted, because standing there was a man she hadn't seen in 15 years. Older, thinner, his face worn by time, but unmistakable. Emily, he said softly. Her breath caught, because it was him, Mark Carter, her father, alive. And in that moment, nothing else mattered. Not the years, not the silence, not the lies. Just one thing. Where have you been? She whispered. Mark looked past her, into the house, at Laura, and something passed between them, unspoken, heavy. Then he looked back at Emily. I don't have much time, he said. Her heart dropped. What do you mean? Mark stepped closer, lowered his voice. They know I'm here. Emily's blood ran cold. Behind him, the car across the street, its engine turned on. And in that moment, everything Laura had tried to protect her from was no longer coming. It had arrived. The car across the street didn't rush forward. It didn't need to. It just idled there, quietly, like it had all the time in the world. Mark stepped inside and shut the door behind him, locked it, then checked the window, again and again, like a man who had spent years learning that one glance wasn't enough. "Dad," Emily said, her voice barely holding together, "what is going on?" Mark turned to her, and for the first time since she'd opened the door, his expression softened. Not fear, not urgency, something else. Regret. "You've grown," he said quietly. Emily's eyes filled instantly. "Don't do that," she said, shaking her head. "Don't come back after 15 years and say things like that." Her voice broke. "Where were you?" Mark swallowed, hard. "I wanted to come back," he said, "more than anything." "Then why didn't you?" Emily shot back. Silence. Because the answer wasn't simple. Laura stepped forward. "This isn't the time," she said quietly. Mark looked at her. "No," he replied. "It is." And that was the moment everything shifted, because for 15 years, the truth had been buried, hidden, protected, but not anymore. Mark took a slow breath, then looked at Emily. 15 years ago, he began, "I made a mistake." Emily's chest tightened. "What kind of mistake?" she asked. Mark hesitated. "The kind that doesn't go away." A pause. "I used to work for a logistics company," he continued. "Small, quiet, nothing unusual on the surface." Emily frowned. "What does that have to do with this?" "Everything," Mark said. And then he said something that changed everything. "We weren't moving legal cargo." Silence. Laura closed her eyes, like she had heard this before. Emily stared at him. "What do you mean?" Mark's voice dropped. "We were moving money, documents, people." Her heart skipped. "People?" she repeated. Mark nodded slowly. "And one night, I saw something I wasn't supposed to see." The room seemed to shrink. "What?" Emily whispered. Mark looked toward the window again. The car was still there, waiting. "A list," he said. "A list of names." Emily didn't understand at first. Names of who? Mark met her eyes. People who had already disappeared. A chill moved through the room. And people who were going to. Silence. Emily's breath caught. "You're saying..." "I wasn't just working for them," Mark said. "I was helping them." The weight of that settled hard. "And when I realized what I was part of," he paused, "I tried to leave." Emily shook her head slowly. "They don't let people leave, do they?" Mark gave a faint, humorless smile. "No." Another silence. "So what did you do?" Emily asked. Mark looked at Laura, then back at Emily. "I took the list." Everything stopped. "You what?" "I took it," he repeated, "and I ran." Laura stepped in. "That's why he left," she said quietly. "They would have come here, to us." Emily's mind raced. "So all this time, I was hiding," Mark said, "moving, changing names, staying ahead of them." "And now?" Emily asked. Mark looked toward the door. "Now they found me." Right on cue, headlights flashed across the window. The car engine outside grew louder. Emily's pulse spiked. "What do we do?" she asked. Mark didn't hesitate. "You stay here," he said. "No," Emily replied immediately. "Emily, I'm not letting you disappear again." The words hit harder than anything else. Mark stared at her, and for a moment, he saw the little girl he had left behind, and the woman standing in front of him now. "You don't understand," he said. "Then make me understand," she fired back. Silence. Then, a knock. Louder this time. Not patient, not polite, final. Laura's voice dropped. "They're here." Mark took a step forward. His face changed. Not fear, not hesitation, decision. "I'm not running anymore," he said. Emily's heart stopped. "What are you doing?" Mark reached into his jacket and pulled something out. A small flash drive. "I kept it," he said. Emily frowned. "What is that?"
"The truth," Mark replied. Another knock. Harder. "Open the door." Mark looked at Emily. "This is what they've been chasing for 15 years. Emily's hands trembled as she took it. "What do I do with it?" Mark's voice was steady now. "You take it to the police." Emily's breath caught. "And you don't stop until someone listens." The door shook. "Last warning." Laura grabbed Emily's arm. "Go," she whispered. "What about you?" Emily asked. Mark gave a small, tired smile. "I'll handle this." "No," Emily said, shaking her head. "No, we do this together." Mark stepped closer, placed his hand gently on her shoulder. "I left once to protect you." A pause. "I'm not making that mistake again." The door burst open. Two men stepped inside, cold, controlled. And in that moment, everything came to a head. Mark stepped forward. "It's me you want." The men didn't speak, but their focus shifted. Away from Emily, away from Laura. Exactly as he intended. "Let them go," Mark said. One of the men tilted his head slightly. "You've been difficult to find," he said calmly. Mark didn't respond. 15 years, the man continued. "And you still thought you could outrun this?" Mark's voice was quiet. "I didn't run." A beat. "I survived." And then, sirens, loud, approaching fast. The men froze. Emily stood in the hallway, phone still in her hand. She had already made the call. And just like that, the balance shifted. Minutes later, everything was over. Statements, arrests, chaos. But for the first time in 15 years, the truth wasn't hidden anymore. The names on that list, the people who had disappeared, the network that had operated in silence for years, all of it exposed. And Mark Carter, he didn't run again. He stayed. He testified. And in the end, justice didn't come loudly. It came quietly, in courtrooms, in signed documents, in the slow dismantling of something that had once felt untouchable. Weeks later, the Carter house felt different. Not lighter, not perfect, but honest. Emily sat on the front steps one evening, watching the sun dip below the horizon. Mark sat beside her, older, tired, but present. "Do you ever wish you had just stayed?" Emily asked. Mark looked out at the street. "Every day," he said. A pause. "But if I had," he glanced at her, "you wouldn't be sitting here right now." Emily didn't respond, because she knew he was right. Some choices don't feel right. They just feel necessary. And sometimes the truth doesn't protect you. It costs you. But in the end, it's the only thing that sets you free. So here's the question. If you were in Mark's position, would you have stayed and risked your family or disappeared to protect them? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if this story kept you watching, don't forget to like and share your thoughts. Because stories like this aren't just about what happened. They're about the choices we all hope we never have to make. And if you thought this one was intense, wait until you hear what happened in the next story. Subscribe so you don't miss it.